get started?
Let's do it.
Oh, another room, huh, Damon?
Same room, same room.
Is it? It looks different.
Yeah. It's just dark here.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, we were knocking icicles off of the boat launch earlier
Oh,
today.
wow. I'll pass.
Good solid northern Michigan fun right there.
It's awesome. Looks great, Yosef.
Yeah.
Okay, Scott Damon, I'm gonna hit the buttons while you guys can go ahead.
Well, Damon, I'm going to turn over to you because, as I mentioned to you, that this month for me was not a good month in terms of my engagement. I had a lot of stuff going on, and unfortunately, I wasn't engaged as I'd like to be. But I was definitely checking in on the wall and inspired by everyone's just level of sharing and courage. So I'm here just because I love what we're doing and love the community that we're creating. So I'm here to celebrate with you all.
That sounds good, Scotty. So Scott mentioned me being in a different room, and we have a family cottage that when COVID struck in March or in May, we had to move out of our house and we moved down here. And it's really, as I was in this house today, it made me think about some of the earlier times that many of us have had together throughout this whole experience. And I actually pulled up some early videos of recordings of some of our early Flow One stuff, and to see where we are now, to know where I am just personally, and to have gone through, literally these last, half a year plus with many of you, it's emotional for me, and it reminds me. There's a beautiful Swedish word, Josef, correct me if I'm wrong on the pronunciation, but I think it's logom.
Lagom.
Logom, which is, in my understanding of it, it's just about right. Where
Yep.
it's good enough, right? We're doing pretty well. So I kind of want to start with that as a theme that, I think a lot of times we think that, we're trying to get from A to Z. But really that journey, no matter which letter we end up on, that's what we're here to recognize and celebrate. So, and looking at the image of even the flow exploration, Josef and I went back and forth with some images. And, I think when we looked at that image, we thought about what's the spirit of this month that we want to create. And the idea of sort of being under this sort of protective, natural awning, looking out at a beautiful sunset, inspiring awe, but also, setting the intention to explore. I just couldn't be more, filled and fulfilled with this as an exploration that we just went on. And as I said in my last video, it wouldn't have happened without all of us. So with that, go ahead, Josef, and kind of move us through a little bit. This is incredible, with the number of people that we had. I think we had about 50 active participants. So, over 20,000 actions, north of 700 gratitudes, the check-ins. These metrics are all really, really cool and interesting to see and to explore. And I'm going to go off script just real quick and say that on the daily emotional survey, one thing happened this month that's never happened in any of our challenges, and that is that the area of our body that most accurately described the emotion we were feeling for the first time ever was not the head. And I think that that's something really that stands out and noteworthy to me. It was a split between chest and heart and chest, which seemed like the same kind of word, right? So we really did move down in our bodies, and that was about 50%, and head was 28%. So we nearly doubled it with where we were at feeling our emotions. And I think it showed up in this month. And I think that, you know, that doesn't always sit well. It doesn't always feel good. Sometimes it brings out more emotion. But the fact that we were able to drop down into more of our heart center this month, to me, is indicative of really what this month was supposed to be about, and really what it ended up manifesting as. So,
Damon, could you speak to why that's important from, again, the flow stuff? You know, why is it that shift out of our brains into our bodies is such a critical shift when we're talking about managing our state?
Yeah, right. Thanks, Scott. Well, one thing is that, you know, often when we identify with our head, we're identifying with our thoughts. And so our thoughts are not necessarily who we are. They are these manifestations that pop up in our head. And when we're in our thinking mind, oftentimes we're ruminating, oftentimes we're critical, oftentimes that self-talk is, you know, -9-to-1 ratio. And all of those things are the epitome of blocking us from flow. So if we're dropping into our bodies, where we're not listening to the symbolic reel of language, but instead we are in this interoceptive awareness, where we're listening to what's going on inside, outside of language, we have a much better chance of continuing to cultivate the conditions for flow, and also a much more accurate data collection of what's really going on inside of us. And if we can, you know, translate that inside out approach to be more connected to our emotions, we can tell a different story in our brain, and our brain will start to pick up on the signals that we're experiencing within our bodies, as opposed to the very basic general language that typically comes through our head. I feel stressed. I feel mad. It was that person's fault. The storylines end up becoming really hardened. And so by dropping into our bodies, not only are we connecting on this interoceptive level, but we're starting to prune some of that hardwiring that has kept us stuck, and allowing ourselves the capacity to be able to rewire in ways that we feel more connected to. So that's really the science and the sauce underneath that metric. So before I go further, I just I'm scrolling on my own here just to kind of, I want to point out one final bit on the daily survey, and that was around thinking of a situation with another. I chose to, and our nearly 50% of us chose to give those people that we were with emotional support, which speaks to this ability to cultivate that sense of empathy. You know, we feel connected to others when we're giving them emotional support. So that was number one at 50%. And that at 35% was, I just listened. I just made space for them. To me, those are really beautiful symbolic metrics of taking a deeper exploration, and, you know, thinking about building this course and seeing that manifest in real lives, in our day-to-day lives, is amazing. And the last shout out I'll give is to Catherine Sui Picard, who did the daily survey 24 out of 30 days this month. She was head and shoulders the highest. Many of us, though, 16, 15, Pam, Paul Peck, Tori Rogers was up there half the month. John, you were up there half the month. So, you know, a lot of what we talk about with breath by breath, brick by brick, this is how you show up by doing these types of surveys every single day, and then jumping in with the gratitudes, check-ins, and the wins. So I'm really proud of the work that people have done, you know, and expressed throughout that day-to-day survey. So, you know, here's the drop down, right? Accept and reframe looks like by a hair over shifted to senses. You know, I love on this, what jumps out to me on this is the other as well, that, you know, people are finding their own way to apply those flow triggers. And nothing is more potent than you figuring out your own path in that regard. You know, N=1 is a mantra that you hear over and over from us. So it's neat to see these numbers. And like I said, I think it's really powerful that, you know, yeah, I like these accept, reframe, shift my senses, but I've got my own method. And that's really a beautiful indicator for me. Okay, Joseph. Some shout outs, conversation with Martha around self-compassion early in the month. And I think what jumps out to me, you know, as I reflect on that conversation is just how raw and rugged she makes self-compassion be. It's not bonbons and champagne. It's not, you know, loathing. It's an honest assessment of what's really going on. And when we can do that, that's a lot of courage. It takes a lot of courage and a lot of bravery. She also talked in there about how we can experience empathy fatigue. And that's something that I think that I personally have felt throughout my personal and professional life. And I'm sure many of us can relate with that. But I think it's important for us to understand the dance between self-compassion and empathy, and then back again. So if we are empathizing with others and we're just tapped out, John, you mentioned it earlier in the month, you're just coming home and just like, I got nothing. It's, you know, for us to be able to be okay with that and to, you know, acknowledge where we are, give ourselves the benefit of the doubt, give ourselves that sense of being more, you know, supportive and coaching ourselves. Not only does all of that stuff kind of, you know, you hear those words and it sounds kind of pretty in its, you know, the cycle that I'm describing. But really at the end of the day, all of these things also help us to stay connected to the flow cycle. Because if I'm in empathy fatigue, that's a signal or a cue that I need to recover. And, you know, that recovery leading back into struggle, coming into release, getting to more flow, you know, so these things all interplay off of one another. But I want to just appreciate Martha for all of her compassion and wisdom. If any of you are interested in the Bay Area, she does wonderful workshops. She has a couple of really beautiful programs. She does a laughing yoga program, which she brings into Salesforce and Twitter and all these, you know, larger companies in San Francisco. And, you know, I think she's shown a lot of courage. She was a lawyer, contract lawyer in her previous life, and found her calling doing these things. So thank you, Martha. These numbers speak for themselves. I'm going to sit back and just watch them and let them sink in.
And just to explain here, we bundled in the questionnaire, you could choose between to a great extent, or to a very great extent, to a great extent, to a moderate extent, to a small extent, and not at all. And we bundled together moderate, great, and very great. So that's where you see, that's the numbers here.
Wow.
I think the one that stands out is that we still have a lot of distractions in our life, and we have to have a lot of compassion because there's a lot going on.
Okay, Joseph.
Yeah. My laptop somehow is a bit slower than my phone. So yeah. I changed the slide, but there it is. So these are some of the takeaways, and I left the names out and just left the statements there because we can read them and maybe somebody else is expressing something that we also can agree with. So rather than trying to like, oh, this is the takeaway that this person had, we can maybe borrow ideas from each other here. If anybody wants to chime in, please say something.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm assuming the effed up is filled up. I'm assuming.
Freaked up.
Freaked up.
Yeah.
Some good stuff.
It is really good stuff. One thing I'll just throw in here right now as we're watching this, just to be mindful of your own breath while we're going through this, can be a really impactful way to, stay clear, stay calm, use some of the skills so that your mind doesn't start to, kind of run away, or that to the point about distraction. And sometimes when we can connect to our breath and really embody some of these takeaways, it can be a really powerful way to stack some of that.
I think that fourth one should be from critic to coach. I think there might have been a typo there.
And whoever wrote it, let's have self-compassion in that.
Absolutely.
Okay, here we go. Wow. Mark Porter, I wrote him an email. He wrote me an email, reached out, and I responded to him by saying, every time I went to make a comment on somebody else's wall, Mark had already been there. Mark was everywhere. And I really, I said that to him, in our conversation, in the email that I wrote him, but it's just, what makes this work is when we all participate with one another. So congratulations, Mark. That doesn't surprise me at all. Heidi, I just spoke with a few minutes ago. She's not feeling well, so she's not on the call right now, but I know she'll watch this recording, and also just want to give her a big hug and a shout out for articulating those small moments and bringing those to light for herself and also for the community. And as I mentioned, Catherine already, participating in the daily emotional ID, clearly that wasn't self-serving. Was also the high five champ. So that's pretty incredible. Pam and Dan and Andrea and Melissa, Jennifer, Sarah, Rhodey, you all are active within me, because you're so prominent within this course. And, it's full disclosure, Pam and Dan are relatives of mine. So I see them in other forums, but, just sharing small moments of life and challenges and insights in this month of exploration. These are the top 10, but we all win. And so even if you're not on this list, in any capacity that you played a role. Woo, look out. Okay. This is exciting for me. This is what I love to do. So I'm looking forward to seeing who I get to work with.
And here again, I had my son participate. He was hitting the number generator. So
he was. Okay. So we know this is fair.
And drum roll, the winner is?
Andreas, yes. Oh, that's awesome.
That's great.
That's awesome. I look forward to that, Andreas. I will reach out to you and we can set something up for schedule wise. So the second one is this, it's a cognitive function assessment and a review with me. This is a really potent, a few people have done this, not many of us, but this is a really great instrument. Executive function, working memory, some of the other functions and facets of our brain functioning. And so it's a very low stakes, it's, you know, gamified, it's virtual. So it's not a very difficult thing for us to do, but I wanted to offer this because it's a really great insight. And then, you know, once I get the results, we can go over it, and I'll share some very kind of easy, you know, low-hanging fruit type of tools that we can use to potentially boost up some of the areas that we see, or we can celebrate that you're, you know, doing super well already. Okay, cool. Another fun experience for me, Mark. I'll reach out to you. I'm just going to need your birthday, my friend, and then we can get started. You know, this month also behind the self-compassion and the empathy, you know, the muscle and what drives it all is focus. And Daniel Goleman he's a leader in this field. He wrote Emotional Intelligence. And this book, Focus, is a Bible for me. So Dusty, Lauren, Rhodey, Catherine, and Paul, excellent. You'll all receive a copy of this amazing book. It's packed of science, but it's also got a lot of practical tools. And I think you'll experience, you know, some of the evidence-based research that went behind some of what we put into this program in this book. And like I said, it's one of my favorites. So I'm looking forward to getting that out to you all. Yeah, what a month. I mean, you know, these comments, they're really powerful and potent and thoughtful. And, you know, we are really looking forward to what's next. And just a small addendum, I think we're probably going to end up going with the term resilience over stamina, but a lot of it's, you know, in a lot of ways, it's the same thing. You know, I think that we've laid the groundwork. We've gotten into the present moment. And we've done some of the, you know, the more difficult work this month. To me, this month is probably one of the more difficult experiences to go through. Having that, you know, turning the insight, turning the, you know, the attention within, and doing it without that critic leading the way can be so difficult. You know, most of us are programmed to either be, you know, whether we're, you know, in high achievement, or whether have been struggling, or, you know, whether we've dealt with any sort of trauma or PTSD in our lives, or whatever the case may be. You know, whatever reason it is in our society, it's very difficult for us to give ourselves props. And so, you know, us to be able to practice that this month. And as we all know, you know, there's a divide that exists that's probably as deep and as rift, you know, as big of a rift as we've probably ever experienced in our lives. And, you know, one of the things that I feel really strongly about is trying to find the humanity within, you know, each other. And so, you know, practicing empathy and really kind of giving people the benefit of the doubts first, understanding that we're all human, putting ourselves in other people's shoes. Not only, I think, is that something that should fall under this umbrella of soft skills, but I actually think it's probably one of the more rugged, potent things that we really need to pay more heed to. And So I just applaud everyone for playing this month and
Yeah.
playing it in your own personal, individual way.
Do you want to put a little teaser out there in terms of what we're working on, Damon, around the hone your zone thing as a focus for kind of, because what we're, yeah, I'm just curious to know if we want to kind of share that and I'll put it out there. So we've been putting together, you know, as you see, we have different flow challenges coming, and we're going to put it into ecology called Hone Your Zone. So that's going to be, and we want to be able to do is be able to keep the connection. So it's a 6-week on kind of thing with a challenge and then 6 weeks off, but the ability to stay connected where we have a vehicle where you guys can do the wall of winds, keep the wall of winds going, keep the community going. And so we're going to be rolling it out. It's still in its brainstorm phase, but we have a good template, but we would love to just hear any input that you guys have of, do you want to keep a community like this, a growing community of people who are in pursuit of flow and then just support? Because that's the thing that I'm inspired by, is just how much, even in my limited capacity I had this month, I would come here. It was like my Sorcerer's Stone, that I could just kind of, you know, read some comments and feel like, oh, I'm back, you know. So I really, to me, our commitment is we want to continue the going forward, taking in all your feedback, making the tweaks where we need to, but just grateful. But our commitment for 2021, is we want to see over, I keep pushing for 10 million actions as a community. But ultimately, if we have 10 million actions of self-care and compassion, hopefully we can do our part in helping to make our communities, our families, our world just a little bit better. But that's where we're going. And so it's going to be the hone your zone is going to be what we're about, because we really want you to, as you think about the flow cycle and the flow challenge and the flow channel, being able to calibrate. If I'm feeling, you know, a little bit down, what do I tweak? How can I hone it so I can be at my best? At, you know, what's the next best step for me? Or to John's point earlier, like this month for me was like, and you know, both Damon and Joseph, everyone gave me the space to be there. So, and no one really asked, hey, what's wrong? Which I always hated that, when you were kind of feeling down one day and you just like, I don't know, why you keep asking me if something's wrong? Nothing's wrong. So what's wrong? But you keep asking me. So shut the hell up. So it was just really good to just be me and know that I had a community that I can always fall back into. And that's what we want to continue to create. So I just want to put that teaser out there. But definitely I'll be reaching out to you guys and just interviewing to hear some ideas, because we want to continue to hear from you all as well. So that's where we're going.
And we're already at 150,000 actions as a flow community. So with a flow 1 that we did 3 times, and now flow 2 the first time, I think it adds up to about 150,000 actions already, which I think is great.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, and just to follow up briefly on where we're headed with, you know, flow 3, you know, we're gonna label this one resilience. And now that we have kind of gotten into the present moment and, you know, kind of figured it all out on a little bit more clarity, you know, how do we build the capacity to take what life has to offer us in a way and not get knocked off? You know, the way I frame it is, you know, we can get knocked down, but not unmoored. And what I want us to be able to do in this next one is to really clarify, you know, personal, professional, team mission statements and aspirations, really explore grit, not just as a passion and perseverance tool, but grit to, you know, be our best when we're at our worst, grit to control our thoughts, grit to train up our weaknesses. You know, grit is a powerful fulcrum for a lot of different things. And balance. You know, how do we create and cultivate more balance in our lives? And how do we use these triggers of flow in ways that are more artistic? I think I mentioned earlier, you know, I do breath work, music, and juggling before I'm going to do anything that's really important to me. So the term is flow stacking, and, you know, being more artistic around these tools and starting to paint a picture that's got a little bit more nuance to it. And still do everything that we do every single time, right? The wall of wins and the gratitude, but the coaching will be a little bit more centered around, kind of building out our own personal GPS and our identity, and then what areas that can we use, in terms of wellness. We're going to talk a little bit more about sleep hygiene and, and nutrition and hydration and some of those other areas that are a little bit more common in different programs. But now we feel like we're at that place that we can really have, even those things can have even more impact. So that's where we're going with this third round. And then we'll kind of like finish off the program with optimal. And that's going to be kind of taking it all and really pushing a little bit harder, a little bit farther, and starting to kind of like entertain some, ideas around mastery as well. So that's where we're going. But to Scott's point, those periods in between, like we're about ready to enter into right now, it's nice to have a break in a way from the challenge itself. But it would be nice to be able to still kind of stay connected. And I think that's really what we're talking about. I mean, the wall of wins, I think I mentioned it. It is a 95% state shifter for me, where every time I go there and I read for 5 minutes, I feel better. I feel more connected, and I feel more centered to my own purpose, and I feel more connected to the community. So, we like it to be able to kind of get off of the, the challenge wheel in a sense, but it would be really nice. And to Scott's point, we'd love to get some feedback as to how that lands with our community. So feel free to reach out to us about that.
Or let us know right now.
Yeah, or right now. Yeah.
Because I'm making all kinds of stuff up in my head. John, does that sound okay? What do you think, Rody? Mark, what do you thought? Kim? Ethan?
And you can throw an emoji at us even if you want.
Or a middle finger.
No, I think honestly, that sounds amazing, but because I feel like the first challenge felt for me like really tactical, and like, here's this set of skills and here's how you can kind of get to flow, and like really it's very strategic in that way and kind of granular. And I feel like this challenge for me was much more ethereal in a way, like, not to use like a non-word, but it was really like a very personal journey on this one. And it wasn't about like applying tools and stepping into, this skill set. And so I feel like I know that I learned more about myself this round than I did the first one, because some of that was just a little bit more familiar. But the building blocks now from this into the next one feels like, whether it's art or physicality or something, I like that there would be then kind of that level up, that you would get just more to it and more challenge from it. And then, because obviously then their flow is going to come from that too. So I like the idea of just kind of leveling up each time. That's exciting for me, especially with the base that I feel that this one gave me.
Nice. Thanks, John.
Awesome.
Well, my comments are what John said.
What a safe bet.
Yeah, but in all sincerity, I mean, listening to you, John, I resonated all of everything you said there. I just kind of, this time around was more personal. It was really more engaging, and like you, Scott, I think this particular month was kind of off in other different directions, whatever. So I didn't feel like I really applied or engaged as much. But even the amount that I did get that personal benefit from, that personal growth from. So, that's what I'm looking for. Like, I think also looking to flow 3 is the resilience part, and kind of pulling back a little bit. We're almost rounding the turn to 1 year of COVID. Mm-hmm. And I think this month, resilience was such a key factor, kind of bouncing up against it and trying to maintain some resilience, just because it seems like the marathon getting close to that wall and the 24th, 25th mile. And so that's why I'm looking forward to the resilience, because I think it's going to hit time-wise really, really well.
Yeah, this whole experience for me reminds me of when I was in high school. I was in student leadership, and there was a activities guy who's really, his name was Earl Room, and he wrote a book. And it was just like a journal, just like a way to just check in with yourself throughout the year. But the title was "A Place to Stand While Putting Yourself Together," and I think that's the piece of this. This creates the space for, at least for me personally, to just be in where I'm trying to make sense of what's going on around me, drawing from the strengths of the stuff that I know, work to apply them, keep tweaking, read what other people are doing. And that's why I'm curious to know about that other category for some of you, as Damon said earlier, because I want to learn and keep sharing and keep growing, and with the pursuit of, putting myself together, because it's still work in progress between now and the time that I meet my maker, so that's the key. Just keep putting myself together.
Does anyone want to speak to that idea of talking about having a forum in between as well? And again, that's not content driven. That's just community, a place to be able to, and there's no points, there's no boards, there's just the wall of wins, and a way to continue to speak your truth and share small snippets. Does that feel like it would consolidate, or does it feel redundant? How can anyone give us some insight on what they think of that?
Well, I think a key point that you mentioned, Damon, is kind of taking the gamification out of it. Mm-hmm. It makes that difference. It's not so much either feeling that compelling aspect to engage or participate, but more self-interest. So therefore, it's more getting something out of it as opposed to kind of keeping up or just doing that compelling notion that I want to get into it, I want to do it, I get a lot out of it, but at the same time, having that kind of more of a free-flowing ability when I'm ready, when I can, when I want to, and in some aspects, I probably might even become more engaged.
Yeah,
because it's on my own terms, it's my own will, my own initiative.
Yeah, and I like the idea of the muscle memory of the repetition of it, because I feel like it can be anything, right? It can be snowboarding, it can be painting. The more that you're doing it, the more that you're just in tune with it. And I know for me, in between the challenges, I have to get back into that flow of the challenge every time. But if it's there and I can just keep kind of that consistent cadence of it, I know for me that's very helpful, just on a personal level.
Yeah, thanks guys. Anybody else want to chime in?
Yeah, I did appreciate how there was occasionally the prompts for things that we could write about on the walls, and then kind of those help to guide some different thought processes or discussions every now and then. And so I like the way they tied back into the content, and even without going forward and having more content supplied, even drawing back on some of those themes would be nice as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. I appreciate that. And, I think the one thing that I'd like to do is to share a little bit more of the research behind where these things came from in the first place. And that to me would be a really great place for that. Like, hey, check this article out. And maybe use that as an open forum for a discussion. But, to your point, connected to what it is that we were doing. Without the have to facet of it all. So
yeah, for all those competitive people that just want to win, they're compelling, like, okay, John's winning, I got to get on the line. So
I totally had that moment just in this last hour. I did. I had to accept and reframe that I was not in the top 10.
Right, brother.
Yeah, but in our minds, John, you're in the top 10.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're still a legend. It was awesome.
Well, that's what we got for you guys. Unless anyone is inspired to share anything before we sign off, anything, just gonna hold space for maybe a minute here, and just if anything feels like there's some truth that you want to speak, or if there's something that you wanted to say out loud before we jump off.
I've really been appreciating everything about these challenges and actually experienced some FOMO this last month because I didn't participate as much as I would have liked to because I just had so many things going on. And there were so many times that I woke up the next morning and felt like I missed out because I didn't add something on the wall yesterday. And then I'd have to practice the self-compassion and give myself some grace. So it was just this crazy cycle. But I really do. I want to thank you so much for everything and the community that you've built. It's been fantastic.
I mean, again, this is the part that I was like, everyone's been a part of creating it. That's the thing. And that's what I love about it. If we're not owning this, you guys are owning it yourselves as well. And it's about creating space, and you guys are filling it beautifully. So I'm grateful for all of you. So it's awesome.
I'll share a quick, oh, sorry. Go ahead, Roddy.
Just quick, I was just going to say, like, just happy to be along for the ride. Appreciate you get the opportunity to be along for the ride.
That's awesome.
Thanks, Rody. We're happy to have you along for the ride.
Yeah, just there could have been so much to I don't know, wallow in this year. And I feel like having the flow challenges have been just really special to have such highlights and beauty come out of that and watch other people have that. And I think, you know, collectively to feel that there's this just well-being and rising from what could have been potentially disastrous. I think if you go down that path, and it's pretty inspiring, to your point, Scott, that it is a collective, but it is a collective about well-being and positivity and support. And it's just, I mean, I can't imagine going through this year without this stuff. And I feel that I'm not the only one, and knowing that that's such a together moment is beautiful to me.
That's awesome, John. Yeah. You know, looking back, I can't remember a single comment or a group of comments that went, you know, down a cynical, negative path.
Yeah,
I really can't. In the whole time that we've been doing this, and we have a very diverse group of people that have been participating in this. So yeah, I think we should all be proud of that. And yeah, I can't imagine either. You know, honestly, this one felt to me like it was a vulnerable experience to put this out. And I really want to thank all of you for, you know, opening yourselves up to play this game in a vulnerable way, in an imperfect way. And I think that really that models so much of what is the best of us as humans, and also the bottom line. I mean, I think, you know, many of us are still striving and, you know, going after, you know, big goals in life. And I don't think this stuff is just kumbaya around the campfire. It really is setting us up to be able to deal with all the volatility and all the complexity and the change and you know, we're at that point when we're starting to turn a page on a new year, when everyone starts to make their you know, proclamations for what next year holds and all that. And I guess I feel like the new reality is that none of us really know on a larger scale what the hell is going to happen, but that this community is we've allowed ourselves, we've built some of the skills and some of the scaffolding to be able to handle some of and, you know, the whatever the various challenges and curveballs that are going to come our way. And so we'll keep going and look forward to being able to start the year off with this group and many more. So thank you all so much for the month. It was amazing.
Look at Clint Rebig. I love that guy, man.
I know Hanukkah is starting tonight, and you know, those of you who celebrate that, you know, happy Hanukkah, and Christmas is around the corner. And so have it be a safe and joyous and hopefully connected and healthy season right now. So
Yeah.
much love to everybody. Take good care of yourselves, and we'll see you on the other side.
You're here. See you guys.
Thank you
Yeah.
so
Thanks,
much.
Damon. Bye,
Yeah.
guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Happy holidays.
Yeah.
Happy holidays.